Welcome everybody to today's session of EiPP. It is our third session, and as we know from the title of the session, it's connecting your audience. So now I'm going to run through the agenda. Next session, we're going to have an introduction to our breakout sessions. It's going to be led by Brother Timilehin or Milana. After this introduction, we will be sent to our respective breakout sessions. These will be in the breakout room. And within these sessions, we will all be tackling a different topic. After these sessions, we will now come back together where the moderator will be giving the feedback for the sessions. And we will have a short vote based on one of the feedback that we received for a particular session. I'm not going to say which one it is. We just have to find out when the time comes. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a brief announcement and some closing prayer. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to Brother Timilehin.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Right, let me just go straight into the point. We want to make this session today to be as interactive as possible. And so the format we will be using is to have breakout sessions. So we're going to have 4 breakout sessions. Pardon me, I will just share my screen so we can all follow along with me. Can we all see my screen, please?
Yes.
Good. So the format we're going to use this evening is to have 4 breakout sessions. So when it is time, we will all be assigned randomly to 4 breakout rooms. So the first room, we will be talking about top speaker connectors. What are the factors that makes speakers connect to the audience? And then that will be facilitated by Emmanuel. That's the man that just spoke right now. And what we want us to do is to curate a list of top 10 things that actually make speakers connect to the audience. And then we have 10 minutes to do that. And once we deliberate, we can all please come out of the breakout room with just one question to feed back to the whole house. So what we're going to do in each breakout room is talk about our topics. So for group 1, the breakout room 1 is talking about the top speaker connectors, facilitated by Emmanuel. Group 2, we will be talking about top speaker disconnectors. So what are the things, the factors that actually disconnect the speaker from the audience? That will be facilitated by myself. Group 3 would be top speaker real-time responses to disconnectors. So if you are a speaker and then you notice that the audience are disconnected, what are the top speaker responses that you can actually activate real-time to make you reconnect back with the audience? So that session will just list some of the things we think speakers can actually use. So that will be facilitated by Abolade. And the 4th breakout room, we'll be talking about top speaker lifetime connection habits. So what are the habits that speakers need to develop, need to inculcate, need to develop along their lives so that they can always connect with their audience? So do we all understand our different topics? Can I see a thumbs up if you understand? Good. So those are the topics we will be treating this evening. We would all be randomly selected into different breakout rooms. And then once we are deliberating, the facilitators will be curating a list of actions, list of factors, which they will feed back to the whole house. And then we all can have just one question from each breakout room that we or the whole house can actually deliberate on, and Pastor Kenny would then give us more insight on that. Thank you. My screen is still here, so as much as possible, facilitators and members, we can just take a screenshot or just a photo on our phones so that when we get into our breakout rooms, we will not be able to see this screen, so we will know the questions we are meant to deliberate on.
Thank you, everyone. It looks like we had a very interactive and engaging breakout session. I definitely did, and I was writing notes as we went along. There were a number of things that were said in my session, which I really found fascinating. And I would hand over back to Emmanuel now to take us through the feedback on the breakout session. So after Emmanuel, Timileyin, Abolade, and then Osas, and then we'll have Timileyin back to take us to the next stage of the evening. So over to you, Emmanuel, for your breakout feedback, please.
Thank you, sir. So in my group 1, we tackled the top speaker connectors. So what are the things that maybe you as a teacher, speaker, preacher have done that you found connects to your audience very well, or what have you seen in others, speaker, teachers, preacher that connected with you well? So we have a number of feedback points. The first one is that the preacher or speaker need to be relaxed, because if you on the pulpit are not relaxed, your mood can filter out to the whole congregation or to the audience. If a preacher is nervous, they might be feeling a bit on edge. So your mood kind of dictates the mood of the room at the same time. The second point we had was that we should be intentional in looking at the audience, engaged, so like making eye contact, maybe finding a way to bring somebody in the audience into the message, and that links to the next point, which is identifying with the audience. So bring the audience in, use something relatable, and then when it comes to, because I've heard it many times, and it was mentioned here, that we should talk about our stories if we're preaching, teaching, or speaking, because it makes us more personable. It makes us more relatable. We're less of like a stranger when you reveal more about yourself. So when you talk about your story, again, speak your story in a way that's very identifiable on ground. So you need to know what the situation is on ground. It wouldn't do to like maybe, again, let's say you're on an outreach to like a rural village, and you now start saying, well, back in the United Kingdom where I come from, we have clean water every day, we have so and so amount of cars, we have this and that. All these gonna turn up, they're gonna probably throw you out of the place. So when you talk about your story, be personable, identify with the situation on ground. And you have to be sensitive to the situation on ground. And finally, one point that was raised by Pastor Kenny was that he said that speakers, preachers, teachers, they should be confidently humble, but be humbly confident. And he said this because in response to like, how does a preacher or teacher, speaker tell their story in an authentic way without coming across as condescending at times? So be confidently humble, but be humbly confident. So now the question that we had, well, it was actually more related to that point as well. So how can you, just to expand on it even further, how can a preacher or teacher tell their story in the right manner that it needs to be done without coming across as condescending? So I feel like we felt as a group that that's something that probably needs to be expanded further and addressed further. Over to you, Timile.
Oh, great. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Yep.
So in group 2, breakout room 2, we talked about what are the key factors that actually makes the speaker to disconnect from the audience. And we actually had some great insights. So the first thing is, if the topic is actually not relevant to the audience, if the audience actually don't have any interest in that topic area, then it is noted that most of the time the audience would actually switch off. Or if another point is, if the language is actually beyond the audience, talking to a group of high school students and you're using grammatical or expert language, which they do not understand. So they tend to switch off. And how you will know they switch off is because it's when they don't respond, they don't comment, they don't say anything. That is the point that they've switched off. And another point, the third one is, if the environment is boring or if the message is boring, I think this actually ties nicely with if the topic is not relevant, or if the speaker himself or herself lacks the skill to raise the hopes or to raise the curiosity in the audience, and everything is just dead, everything is just silent there. And another point which we raised, the fourth one, is the lack of passion. When the audience cites that the speaker actually does not have passion for this, or you are not emotionally connected to the audience, or you're not emotionally invested in that topic, it shows, and then the audience disconnects. Another point is not having confidence or not knowing your subject. If you don't know your stuff, you would most likely disconnect with the audience. And so point 6, wrong body language. And we actually had a very nice statistics that says most of the communication is usually verbal takes 7%, body language takes 55%, and the tone of voice takes 38%. So it shows that what you say is actually not what actually carries the power, but the way you say it and then how you perform on the stage. The 7th point is going over time. And then we talked about, oh, well, probably African time and things like that. When the speaker goes over the allotted time, it is common that they switch off. And the last one is repetition. When you repeat over and over again, the audience tend to switch off. So over to group 3, please.
Yes, thank you very much. We actually looked at top time or top real time disconnectors. So I guess off the back of what you were saying, Tim Lane, was, we were looking at if you were in a situation as a speaker where you found out that your audience was disconnecting. But before we could really go into that, we actually did a bit of what you've done. We looked at some of those factors as well that could potentially cause that to happen. And a lot of the stuff that you've mentioned is exactly what we mentioned as well. So, but in addition to that, we also looked at we looked at people rambling on the same point when you've already made your point. Then we looked at also, you don't necessarily have to use up all of your time, even though you've got an hour slot. If you can deliver your message in a shorter time, deliver it and let it go. Then also we looked at a position where there could be a younger preacher and people looking at that are going, oh, that person is too young. What can I learn from them? That can make them disconnect. But then also bigger factors like, social media, mobile phones can be real disconnectors. And we also looked at being aware of your environment. So we understand that in Africa, potentially they might have more time. You might be able to introduce songs and things like that. But here in the UK, people have shorter time. So, someone might have something in the oven they've put in for an hour. You don't want it to get burnt. So you want to sort of just make sure that you keep it to time. So we looked at all these things, but then we said, look, if you think that you've done everything right, your delivery, you feel like it's on point, you're trying everything possible, at least you feel like that, but then you look up and people are still disconnected. So there was a few things that we answered at the start, and then we answered it again at the end. One of the first things that we said is you can use that moment to ask questions so that you can just engage people a bit more. You can also tell a joke, for instance. If you just feel like people are a little bit disconnected, just use that moment to sort of tell a joke. The joke doesn't necessarily need to be super relevant, but it can just get people to put their attention back on you as the speaker. You can tell a story. You can use a story. Again, it could be a personal story. It could be something that you think is relevant to the topic that you're talking about. I know everyone loves a story. Or you could use some form of physical exercise. So maybe get people to stand up, walk around, clap, do something interesting, something that moves them out of their seat. Or you can get two people talking to each other. You can do like a role play or something. Also, you can randomly call out names. So maybe, again, you might put people on the spot, but not necessarily if somebody's on the mobile phone, call their name out and be like, why are you on your mobile phone? No, not that. But more as to just potentially asking questions, for instance, or maybe calling somebody and then using them almost as a prop on stage. I think that can allow people to reconnect back to what you're doing. Someone said, give real life interactive examples. And then other things include try as much as possible to stay relevant to the topic, regardless of what happens. And again, be aware of your audience. The last few things that we touched on was also you can actually get off the stage, go into the audience and connect with them one-on-one. And that way you are actually interacting with the audience, you know, and you're sort of trying to get their attention. And I think it would make them even more aware of you, because you're not just like this zombied person on stage trying to be authoritative. And then the last thing is something that I think a lot of young people like, and I've seen a preacher in America do, is to use physical objects to help the audience connect. So if anyone's aware of Mike Todd, he uses a lot of physical props, and physical props really sort of help you to visualize things that you're trying to say verbally. And really helps to just really reconnect and see what the speaker or what you're trying to say. Lastly, we did mention that sometimes when you have something too scripted, it can be a little bit boring. So try and diversify. That's me. I'm going to hand over to number 4. What's that?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Abolade. So in our group, we're looking at what the lifestyle habits are of the best speakers. And what better way to do that than to look at 2 actual speakers from the world that we live in. So we looked at Bishop T.D. Jakes and previous President Barack Obama, and looked at their lifestyles and things that they have been doing for some time that helps them to be the speakers that they are, the ones that we admire, that we see today. And we began to compare that with a generic list of habits of great speakers and try to pick out which ones are similar, and began to think as a collective, as a community, what ones are important to us. And the ones that were narrowed down are to practice speaking regularly. The greatest speakers speak often. And the more you speak, the more comfortable you become, because you learn your own quirks. You know, okay, when I get to this word, I do it like this. And when I get to that part of the audience, I do this, etc. You just know how to handle yourself better. You also understand how people react to your voice, the sound of your own voice, be able to empathize and connect with people. And that's something that can only really come through practicing and learning about yourself as well as your audience. So that was number 1 for many people. Another is staying on top of your subject matter and actually knowing what you're talking about. And I think a lot of you guys have already mentioned that. And so someone like Barack Obama, what he did after his office hours at 6:30, he could go home, he would spend time with his family, he would have dinner with his daughters and his wife. And then from 8:30, he goes to a quiet office, and then he's working hard until around 11:30, 12:30 a.m. in the morning, because he's trying to get as much knowledge into his brain. And just to give you an example of another politician, Margaret Thatcher, what she did was she had about 4 hours of sleep a day. And as a result of that, she was always one of the most informed people in the room. I'm not an advocate for lack of sleep, but I'm simply emphasizing on the importance of being on top of the information that, that you're actually speaking about, being a subject matter expert. Last one I'll touch on now, we had a few others, was the ability to network. That was actually brought up by one of the people in our discussion. This is Auntie Bola. She mentioned it, and she, in her opinion, to be a very good speaker, you need to be interacting with other speakers, so being part of a community. And so you need to be able to get from all these other great speakers tips of what they're doing and understanding what makes them excellent. And I think the ability to actually navigate that and get that really critical information will only come about if you'll have the ability to network. And Auntie Bola, if I haven't done justice to your point, please feel free to jump in and add to that.
No, you are good. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much. So I think that summarizes what we discussed in group 4.
Okay, so I'll take over from here. Thank you, Osas. And I think one thing I would just want to point out to everyone is all those points that we've talked about today does not relate to talking in church or in the Christian setting. It is applicable to every aspect of our lives, you know, whether professional, whether in the Christendom, whether engaging in discussion with every other person in our day-to-day activities. So what we want to do right now is, if I just pull this up, all the points that Osas has just talked about, the lifestyle habits that great speakers actually use to engage and connect with their audience, the things they practice every day, we want to sample all of them and see, let us vote for the top 2 that we think are the greatest things, the greatest habits that we should inculcate into our lives so that we can be great speakers. So let me just share my screen in one moment. Right, I believe we all can see my screen. Good. So can we all just quickly grab our phones, or if we're using our computers, just open a new tab and go to slido.com. So when you get to slido.com, it tells you to enter a code. So you just enter EiPP all in capital letters, or you can scan this barcode, whichever you want. And then it asks you to enter your name. Just put in your name in there.
What's the code, please?
The code is EiPP, capital letters. That's just it. Are we there?
Thank you.
If anybody is having any problems joining, just shout out, please. So if he asks you to enter your name, you can just put in your name. Right. People are coming in already. So we all just go to Slido, that's slido.com. It tells you to enter a code. You enter EiPP, all capital letters. And it tells you to enter your name. So you enter your name. Very straightforward. We have 3 people in, and on this call we have about 46 people thereabout. So I need more names to come in. So what we just want to do is, I have already created a long list of the lifestyle habits that great speakers actually engage in. So we want us all to vote for the top 2 that we think are the top 2 things we can start doing from today, so that we can become great speakers and we can connect with our audience in every area of our lives. So 8 people in. Can we just do this quickly? Let us log in, put in our names quickly. We have 1 more minute for people to log in. 10, the number is increasing. What are the habits that we think we should do, as we should engage in every day, so that we can become great speakers, great teachers in every aspect of our lives, giving presentations at work, at conferences, in church, so that we can connect with our audience? What should we start doing from today? And let's just enter, put in our names, nothing more. Just put in your names. I have just 13 people. What is happening? We should have more than that. Anybody having problems?
I'm not able to put my name in. It just says type your question.
Oh, if it says type your question, don't put any question. Just, you are in already. Don't worry.
Okay.
Right. I guess that's the reason why I am not able to see a lot of people. So I think we'll just go on with the questions then. So these are the questions. We can pick just 2 answers. So the top lifestyle connection habits for speakers. What are the top 2 things that we all think we should engage in to make us better speakers and better preachers, so that we can connect with our audience? You are only allowed to pick two options. So you won't, if you pick 3, it will tell you to just pick 2. Just pick 2 and click send. I'll wait for all of us to do that before we reveal what the whole house thinks should be the top 2 things we should engage in from now on. We have 30 more seconds to vote. Right. If you think we should speak regularly, or we should know our subject matter, or we should network with other people, or we should exercise, if you think exercising is the best for us, or time management, or being part of a community. Okay, so we should just reveal. Great goodness. Whoa. Okay. Now this is what we all agreed on, not me. I think people are still voting. Wow. Well, I think this is 81% already said staying on top of the subject matter is the main thing that we need to do to be effective speakers and confident teachers, to connect with our audience, and speaking regularly. Wow. So staying on top of the subject matter. So I guess voting still continues, but I think I'm going to stop voting right now. Right. So voting is closed. Staying on top of the subject matter is what we all said should be the first thing we should do, and speaking regularly. So we go by those two things, and I would hand over to Mr. Kenny. Probably he will be able to give us more insight into this point. Mr. Kenny.
Interesting to note that 81% of us in the room think that being a subject matter expert is the one most important thing that we need to master in order to be able to excel as speakers. And a sizable percentage also think speaking regularly is important. So very interesting, very, very interesting thoughts.
The teaching of today's session should be on YouTube in the near future. So once again, please subscribe, and you'll receive an alert once you once the video has been uploaded. The email of EiPP is on your screen, so just to read it out for those who may be not looking at the screen, it's eippint@gmail.com. So you can send any queries, any thanks, any feedback, send to the email, and I'm sure to get back to you. So now let's round up with a word of prayer.